Welcome to True Crime with Strategic Eyes.
Strategic back again. What's going on, guys? I got a crazy update I want to definitely share with you guys. And it's going to surprise you, this update, because I'm going to side with the bad guy in this case, but only briefly, just for a little bit, just for one legal argument that the bad guy's defense attorney made that I 100% agree with. And this is going to be the story of this young woman, Miss Trevizo, Alexee Trevizo. And if you don't remember who Alexee Trevizo is, she's a young lady who gave birth, 19-year-old girl who was still in high school at the time. They make sure that they say that every time they report it, like somehow that mitigates the choices that she made that day. But she went to the hospital with stomach problems. It turns out that the reason why she was having stomach problems is because she was pregnant. Now, nobody knows if she knew she was pregnant. She contends that she did not know she was pregnant. We do know is that she started to give birth, and she went into the hospital bathroom. She gave birth to the child. She asphyxiated the child. That's what the autopsy report said, and we'll go over the autopsy report after we're done with the main segment of the show. And then she proceeded to hide the baby on the bottom of the garbage, trying to conceal this baby's dead body. And she tried to clean up all the blood and all the dysfunction that was found in that bathroom after she literally gave blood. What am I talking about? Literally gave birth, but she also gave a lot of blood as well in that bathroom. And it was so sad, and this baby is gone. But Mexico figures this out. Let's do it.
What's the latest legal move in a case that rocked New Mexico when a teen gave birth and her newborn was found dead in an Artesia hospital bathroom?
Now the state Supreme Court could weigh in on how much the jurors in her trial will get to hear. News 13's Annalisa Pardo explains.
Now, real quick, the reason why this was such an important ruling is that she pretty much gave a confession. She pretty much gave a confession inside the hospital room with the doctors there, the nurses there, her mother, and police. She confessed to it, right? Now, a lower court, the trial court, the judge who's actually going to be trying the case, he ruled that that confession is inadmissible, and they're going to explain why it was inadmissible in his eyes. And now the prosecutor is appealing that decision to the state Supreme Court. So let's play it out so we can figure out, why did the lower court, the trial judge, say that her confession was inadmissible?
Alexee Trevizo was just 19 years old when she had a baby in an Artesia hospital, and the newborn was found dead in the hospital bathroom. She's set to go to trial next month, but there's still a legal battle over what should and shouldn't be allowed at the trial.
We discovered a dead baby in the bathroom. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. It came out of me and I didn't know what to do.
So what do we have here, right? So the news is going to tell you how they want to explain it, but I'm going to explain it to you how law enforcement looks at this and how district attorneys look at this, and the defense attorneys as well. All right. Now, not just the reporter reading the script, right? What just happened is, because what we're looking at is the body-worn camera footage from the police officer, right? That's who's recording this pivotal moment in this kid's life, in this young woman's life, right? What the doctor just said was an accusatory question, okay? Everybody in that room understood that a crime had been committed, and whether they told her she was under arrest or not, she was under arrest. They were not going to allow her to leave at that time. She was being detained, and while she's being detained, she was asked an accusatory question by her doctor in the presence of police. You can't do that. Custody plus a crime equals Miranda, right? You can't do that. You can't put somebody in a position where they're being accused of a crime. They are in custody, whether it's implied or not, but you know they're in custody, and then you ask them accusatory questions. You got to now read the Miranda. So let's keep going. I wish it'd just play if I click it.
That's just one of the statements Alexee Trevizo made from her hospital bed in January of 2023. That's at the center of this latest question in the case. Her defense argued it's among the evidence that should not be allowed in her upcoming trial, arguing her doctor-patient privilege and Miranda rights were violated when hospital staff turned over information to police and when Trevizo was waiting in the hospital room.
She didn't agree to have the doctor act as a police officer and help interrogate her with police officers.
Now, normally I don't side with the defense, man, but he's 100% correct. First of all, you have HIPAA, so that it technically she gave birth. Now, we don't even know if the baby was a stillborn. If it was a stillborn, it still could be a crime that she did not handle the body of the baby correctly. But nonetheless, it would not be the charge of murder. It'd probably be desecration of a corpse or whatever. I don't know what the title of the charge would be in New Mexico. But the bottom line is we don't know if she literally committed murder at that time. So, and even if she did, she's speaking to her doctor about a medical condition, and the doctors were concerned about her medical state because at one point, the doctor said, enough of these questions. We need to focus about the fact that you just gave birth, and we need to get you upstairs to the surgery room to remove the placenta and stop the bleeding that's continuing to come out of your body. So this is a medical situation, and they're talking about medical stuff in front of the police, and it just so happens that that medical stuff is related to a crime. This defense attorney is 100% correct. The doctor was acting as though he was a police officer, and the statements just may not be admissible. But I want to see what the Supreme Court says about it. But I think they've got good standing with this. And I think that the trial judge, made a really good, difficult, but good and fair, just ruling. And we got to understand here, as much as we want people to pay for their crimes, we have to have a system that we could trust is fair for both sides if justice is going to be served. And when we make mistakes on the side of justice, the righteous, we have to own up to it. We have to. And there has to be checks and balances that's going to make sure that people get fair trials. Like JMK says, you have to trust the system. And sometimes you're going to win some with the system. Sometimes you're going to lose some with the system. Let's let them continue.
Officers in the room. At the time, they already had her in custody. She was not free to go.
Meanwhile, according to court documents, the state argued this was not a HIPAA violation and that Trevizo waived her rights when she started talking to doctors with her mother and police in the room, and that she was not in police custody at the time.
Nah, she didn't. I mean, unless they literally have it on camera that they read her Miranda and she said, I do not want to speak to an attorney. I would like to speak to you. She did not waive her rights. So unless they have that on camera, then what they're saying, there's no implied waiver. You have to be read your rights, you have to understand your rights, and then you have to decide whether you want to continue or not. And if she did that, then maybe the state now has a good case. But still a gray area. Big shout out to Lenny23 said, isn't it past your bedtime? Like I said, man, can't go to sleep right now. So why not give a special show for the members? Everybody else will get this afterwards. Let's keep going.
Originally, a district court judge sided with the evidence, ruling that evidence should be suppressed. But the state is now appealing that decision.
All I can say is that obviously it was evidence that we believe was proper, evidence that we believe that we should be allowed to use. We respectfully disagree.
The DA's office is asking the state's highest court to reverse the decision and allow Trevizo's statements to come out in court. While the district attorney said she can't speak on specifics due to a court seal, she did speak to why her office is committed to prosecuting this case.
Is this really just a medical issue that is private and confidential, or were there some type of actions that we believe rise to the level of criminal intent?
I mean, either way, it's a slam dunk case. You know, the baby belongs to her. The baby was not born inside of her hospital room where she was. She was surrounded by medical professionals. She could have reached out for help at any time. She could have screamed out for help while she's in the bathroom. It's a slam dunk case, but, you know, you want those statements because those statements make the case even more strong. But it's not going to be the end of the world for this prosecution if those statements get thrown out. And you know that the prosecution has a weak case because they can't even make their case to the news. Notice how the defense attorney made his case to the news. He succinctly laid out why those statements should be inadmissible Whereas she's like, yeah, well, you know, we got to do what we got to do, and we'll see what happens. It is what it is. She's doing exactly what she's supposed to do, which is to fight the ruling of the lower court. But that doesn't necessarily mean that she's actually right in her cause for fighting, right? Big shout out to Melanie Copeland. She says, but the baby's cause of death was asphyxiation. Well, you know, neither one of them have anything to do with each other. Yes, the baby did die from asphyxiation, which means that it was most likely smothered to death for some way, somehow. Oxygen was not allowed to travel into that baby's lungs. But what we're talking about is the statements that she made when she was inside that room with her mother and the doctor and the police. Did she understand her rights, and were her rights read to her in an appropriate way that would have allowed her to make the right decision on if she wanted to give a confession? Let's keep going.
And so when we believe that it rises to the level of criminal intent, obviously, our job is to protect children, and so especially any infant who obviously cannot protect themselves.
My great fear
Okay.
is that in the haste to try to convict people, our appellate courts ignore those constitutional rights that we've had for centuries.
Trevizo is
Yeah, and that's big, man. We definitely have to protect the Constitutional, ladies and gentlemen. We have to protect the Constitution. It is what it is. You know, sometimes you're going to have to fight a little hard to win a case, but we can't put ourselves in a position where, you know, we are trampling on our rights. I mean, it's just, I'm just not a big fan of, you know, ignoring the duty that we have to each other under our Constitution. So this is the final pathologic diagnosis. This is the autopsy. School of Medicine did it. Office of the Medical Investigator, NMU, New Mexico University. I guess they do the autopsies out there. A lot of stuff is redacted, and probably rightfully so. Let me bring this over here. You guys can see it too. The narrative summary opinion: baby John Doe was blank. Baby boy who died. I guess this is like testimony, because it says cleaning staff were cleaning up the blood in the restroom. When they removed the trash bag from the trash can, they found the baby in a second trash bag under the first, at the bottom of the trash can with bloody paper towels. The trash bag he was found in was tied closed when it was found. That could have also contributed to his asphyxiation. By putting him in a trash bag and tying it shut, you cut off the oxygen flow. So, I mean, just a horrible way to go for a baby that was born healthy. She could have just given him up for adoption right then and there in the hospital. Literally. I mean, she could have done two things. Apparently, her boyfriend was in the waiting room. She could have went to the boyfriend and said, hey, listen, do you want this baby? Because I don't want it. And sign over all rights to the boyfriend. Or B, she could have just, if he said no or whatever, she could have just called Child Protective Services through the hospital. They do it all for you and immediately give the baby up. Like, the process is super smooth when you just give birth. The longer you wait, the more complicated the process. And then when you get to a certain age, you can't give your kids up anymore. I think it's after 2 weeks. Can't just give them up. But if you give birth in a hospital and you want to give up your child, it literally just takes a few hours and the child no longer belongs to you, and you move on with your life if that's what you want to do. It sounds harsh. I wouldn't do it, but it's a whole lot better than killing babies in bathrooms. I think most people would agree with that. So anyway, let's keep going. When questioned about the incident, the mother reported that the baby was not crying or breathing, so she put it in a trash bag. It is thought that the placenta may have been flushed down the toilet. How terrible is that? An autopsy and postmortem computed tomography showed an infant male without any anatomic abnormalities or obvious physical injuries. The lungs were aerated and there was air in his stomach. That means that the baby could breathe on its own, the whole nine. She killed the baby from her actions, and no changes of decomposition. The connections in the heart, all proper blood flow in the utero was still open, and which is not unusual. The adrenal glands showed microscopic hemorrhages, which can be seen in hypoxia, lack of air. Baby basically couldn't get air, asphyxiated. It's terrible. It's a terrible way to go. Such a pure little soul. just wanted to live at that moment. Just wanted to live. The first thing is I want to live, and then I want to be loved. That's it. The two most basic emotions is what children are born with. I'm out of the womb. I want to live. I want to breathe. I want to live. And then I want to be loved, you know? And this child got neither of them. He didn't get air and he didn't get love. And it's just so sad. Let's keep going. The right lung and cerebrospinal fluid showed rare growth of likely contaminated bacteria, given a lack of inflammation in the lungs and brain. Postmortem viscous electrolyte testing showed no abnormalities. A metabolic screen was negative for underlying metabolic disorders. Chromosome analysis was attempted but was inadequate for interpretation. Postmortem toxicology showed phetamine, a derivative of amphetamine, means she was doing drugs, that is often used as an appetite suppressant, and morphine, an opiate narcotic analgesic. These medications are consistent with maternal consumption and placental transfer to the baby. So she was doing drugs. She was doing drugs. All right, let's get down to the nitty gritty. Basically, this autopsy said that the child was completely normal. A neuropathology examination showed a normal for age brain without any pathogenic findings. There was non-specific vascular congestion, which can be seen in hypoxia, among other things. The air in the lungs and stomach and no evidence of decomposition is consistent with the baby having been born alive based on length, weight, and organ size, which is term and compatible with life outside of the uterus. Oh man, entrapment occurs when an individual is an airtight or relatively airtight container, in this case, a tied plastic trash bag, and consumes all of the available oxygen until there is no longer enough oxygen to sustain life. The baby died because she tied up the baby in a trash bag. Given the investigative information and examination findings, the cause and manner of death are best certified as, and I guess we can't see the second page, but I would say homicide.